right. All right. And it looks like we're live now. Excellent connection. All my meters say nothing is on fire. Welcome to Roll for Question. That didn't count if you heard that. If you didn't hear that, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Welcome to Roll for Question, a show where I am a veteran DM and I offer my advice to you on Dungeons and Dragons. Morning. Hey, Timothy. How's it going? Today, I just have one topic, and this is not really a topic that it's parallel to what new players ask. It's not really a question that new players ask. I would like to talk about the 5-room dungeon, as you can see right here. This is, as far as I can tell, the original website. This is the origination of the 5-room dungeon. It is advice that is often given to new players. So, a common question that new players will ask is, hey, I'm making a one-shot, which is a good call if you're a new player, make a one-shot. I don't know how to make the dungeon. What should I do? And the first piece of advice I would give is, if you're a new player, don't make a dungeon. Run a pre-existing one. Learn from that. But a lot of new players are adamant that they want to make a dungeon. And so, good advice to give them is the 5-room dungeon right here. Direct them to this URL. Direct them to another URL. There are many resources for people describing what the 5-room dungeon is. It's a very simple formula. It's 5 rooms. It's very self-explanatory. It's it's unlikely that you will overburden yourself if you follow this formula, which is a very common problem for new DMs to have, where they make a dungeon and they're like, I need to prep 400 pages of dungeon before I'm ready for session 1. No. Prep 5 rooms. Right there. That's it. Once you've prepped 5 rooms, you're done. Move on. Run it. Be happy with that. That is good advice. And for new players, this is it. And I'll go through what the 5-room dungeon is in just a second. Or I'll go through right now. Here's what it is. 5-room dungeon consists of 5 rooms, and those rooms they follow a recipe. You follow the recipe and you have made a 5-room dungeon, and the recipe is pretty simple. And there's something clever going on behind the scenes that a new player probably won't recognize. And a lot of the people who give this advice, maybe they don't recognize it either, but we'll get into that in just a second. But room 1 is the entrance and a guardian. That's usually a fight. It doesn't have to be a fight, but it usually is a fight. It could be a trap. There's an entrance to introduce the party to the dungeon, and here's a reason why this dungeon has not been explored yet, and it's for you to explore, because there's a guardian. And it's also, here's a fight. You know, a lot of players play this game. They like fights. It's fun. That's the recipe for fun right there. Good. Room 2. Actually, I don't know the names of these rooms by what's on this website. The way that I know it is entrance. Room 1 is the entrance. Room 2 is the conflict. Room 3 is the setback. Room 4 is the boss fight, and room 5 is the resolution / reward / hook for campaign proper. So like, room 1 is the room where you introduce the dungeon. Here's the dungeon. Here's what it looks like. I'm going to do a lot of reading. There's a door here. You can open it. Room 2, there's a fight, which is apparently not what this is saying. So I've been doing the 5-room dungeon wrong. Whoops. Room 3 is a setback. Kind of like the way forward is blocked. You need a key. You have to go find a key now. There might be a puzzle to solve. There's a reason that the party can't progress that they need to solve. They need to figure out. Room 4 is a boss fight. It's a boss fight. Every good one-shot ends with a boss fight. And then room 5 is, here's your reward, or here's where I tell you that actually the boss was the good guy and the people hiring you were the bad guys. And maybe you want to do more campaigns. You want to do a sequel to this one shot where we run the campaign where you guys get revenge or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, I've been doing it wrong. That's how I've always internalized it. Maybe my problems with the 5-room dungeon are because I'm doing it wrong. Let's go through what this says. Okay, room 1, the entrance. There's a lot of text here, and it's very important text, and I shouldn't be skipping it, but I am. Room 1, entrance and guardian. The entrance might be trapped or might be hidden, or there's a guardian. There's a fight here. You fight your way through. That's fun. Room 2 is a puzzle or a role-playing challenge, a non-combat challenge specifically. It is the kind of thing where this game, combat is fun, role-playing is fun. Have some role-playing for those players that enjoy that. Puzzles, also fun. Have some puzzles for players that enjoy that. If you're running a one-shot, you may not know what your players enjoy, so take a stab. Just take a guess. Room 3 is the setback. I'm very certain of that. Yeah, trick or setback. So, examples would be the players recover some hostages. Some of the hostages might be enemies in disguise, or there might be a dilemma involved, or there's a collapsed structure blocking part of the area, and the debris is dangerous. There's a one-way exit. Huh. I'm reading these, and these don't... I don't know. I've always thought of this room as more of you have a setback. You have to go back and find a way to get past this roadblock. So there's a locked door and you need to find the key. And the key might be on the guardian that you didn't search properly. It might be hidden in room 2. Maybe you need to, there's a chasm and you need to build a bridge to get across it, or you need to use magic to get across it. There's some obstacle, some setback. I see that this is a lot more abstract according to this website. According to the original 5-room dungeon. Use a trick, a trap, or a setback. The purpose of this room is to build tension. I don't actually know if that's true. I have a different opinion. I feel like the purpose of this room is to diffuse tension, but that's also because I've always put a combat in room 2. And the way that I've always kind of structured how you build a 5-room dungeon is room 1, introduction. Room 2, conflict. Room 3, de-escalation. Room 4, boss fight. So you go from the conflict in room 2 to de-escalation to make the boss fight stand out even more. Because if you just have only rising tension, that it might work. It might be something that if you're just constantly having fights, after the 4th fight, you're oh, okay, geez, let's get this over with. You want to have a break in between conflicts so that when you have the next, when I say conflict, I mean fight. You want to have a break between fights so that when you have the next fight, the players are ready for it. They're excited for it. They're not oh, geez, another conflict. Okay, let's go. Another fight. Let's go. All right. So I feel like the purpose of this room is to diffuse tension, but this says it's to build tension. And let's keep going. So you've got your setback. Then you move on to room 4, the big battle, the climax, the conflict. This room is the big show. That's pretty self-explanatory. I feel like people get that right. You tell them, do a big battle in room 4. They do a big battle in room 4. It works out. There's not much we need to say here. Let your imagination run wild with what constitutes a big battle. If you're guarding an ancient treasure, that treasure is guarded by a guardian. They're really mean and big, and they have 2 health bars. And when they activate the second health bar, they start shooting lasers from their eyes, and also they have little minions that fly around and annoy the party. Like, sure, that's a boss battle. There's nothing more that needs to be said. What are the ideas? Give the bad guy unexpected powers, abilities, or equipment. Previous rooms might contain warning signals or an alarm. That's not a... We could just stop reading right here. Let's move on. Room 5 is where you give the players the thumbs up. Good job. You did a good. Here's the ancient treasure that you were looking for. Resolution. You found what you're looking for. You can leave the 5-room dungeon happy, successful. You get experience points. You can also, I said this previously, you can also, oh, wait, right here. This is perfect. We came, we saw, we slipped on a banana peel. That's a good quote. You can also put a hook for your next 5-room dungeon or your campaign. Is that? Yeah, that's exactly what it says here. Perhaps the location of the next 5-room dungeon is uncovered, and sufficient motivation to accept that quest. Or maybe the identity of the bad guy is revealed. Yes. The revelation. Okay, cool. I did not prepare this talk at all. I just said, hey, who invented the 5-room dungeon? This guy? This is their website? Cool. I'm going to look at this website and start just talking. And apparently, I have not been doing 5-room dungeons the way that I thought I was supposed to be doing 5-room dungeons. Room 5 ideas. There could be another guardian in the treasure container? Absolutely not. Do not do that. A trap that resurrects and renews the challenge from room 4. What? Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. That is not right. No, room 5 should be like... Absolutely not that. You had the big boss fight. Now have another big boss fight. What you might have is the dungeon starts to collapse and you need to escape it. That maybe? Is that an idea here? No, it's not. I think that's a much better idea than resurrecting the boss fight. It's fine though. My first experience with AD&D was Baldur's Gate. Who cares? Is that Baldur's Gate the video game, or like Baldur's Gate 1, or do you mean you were an adventure? You were playing D&D and the DM started it off in Baldur's Gate? I don't know if I've read this whole thing like at least a decade or 2 ago. I remember liking the ideas when I first read it, but now that I read it again, I feel like no. So this isn't what I was going to talk about, but I have to talk about this. So there's something clever going on with this structure that is very helpful for new players that you don't have to teach them, that they'll just get for free if they make a 5-room dungeon. And you may not even realize that you're teaching them this. BG won the game. That's cool. You may not realize, but there is a narrative structure to the 5-room dungeon. This is teaching players to make a story, basically, the proper way to make a story. And it's really clever that the 5-room dungeon does this, because if a new player asks, I want to make a dungeon, and you tell them, okay, you need to write out the acts and the scenes, and you need to set the new player will be like, never mind, I don't want to listen to you. But if you tell them, make a 5-room dungeon, they'll be like, okay, I was wondering how many rooms I should use, and 5 is a number, so cool. And they do that, and they follow this advice, and they intrinsically make a narrative structure with a beginning, a middle, and an end. I guess according to this, it's just all rising action. I think there was like a citation for like which narrative structure this follows, because I've seen a lot of discussion. The mythic story structure of legendary scholar Joseph Campbell. Okay, I don't know. I'm not familiar with that, but I'm familiar with the 5-act structure and the 3-act structure, where you say, all right, I am going to plan out a plot. Act 1, the players start. A thing happens. Act 2, things escalate. Act 3, we figure out if the players succeed or fail. That kind of thing. And it's not something that I don't think that's done very often. I think most DMs do not do that. And I think it's more popular to just make a dungeon and then go, here you go, players. Let me read you the box text, and then you do whatever you want. And I am going to just sit here and watch and maybe railroad you, but I'm not going to railroad you in a way that makes narrative sense. I'm going to railroad you in a way that I planned this stuff, so you're going to do this stuff. And it may be satisfying. That could be a coincidence. It may be complete, like, we're just gonna spend 3 hours while I railroad you through this house, which is a thing. It doesn't have any narrative purpose or structure or rhyme to it. It's just a house. Here's the living room. Here's the kitchen. Here's where the monsters sleep. I guess here's a bathroom or 6. There's a lot of mushrooms on this ceiling. I'm railroading you through this, so you have to go through it all. You know, there may be no narrative structure at all. So it is not something that I expect is particularly common. But it's important. It's important. It's absolutely important. The even players that are like, I don't care about narrative. I'm here to roll dice and stab goblins. Having a story is better than not having a story. Even for those players. Even if they don't appreciate that stuff. Even if they want, like, I want this to be perfectly modeled. I want it to be super hyper realistic, mega realistic. I want every single goblin to be able to trace every, like, what it was doing a week and a half ago. What did it eat? Where did it get its water? Like, I want to have hyper realistic. What did it spend its money on? Its leisure budget on. Even players that want that level of detail, it's still better to have a story than to not have a story that, like, flows and makes sense. I don't know, like, I kind of lost the plot. What I'm trying to say is important to have a narrative structure. Narrative structure, it looks like this is suggesting one that resembles, like, you start out the intro. Oh, my hand's not. You start out on the intro, and then room 2, you have a conflict, and then room 3, the tension. You build the tension, and then room 4, you have a boss fight. That's the top. And then room 5, you have the boss fight again. So it just stays up there. So it's just escalating, and just stay at the top. That is a narrative structure. That's not really what I was. That's not what I was taught to do. Not really what I've learned. Geez. Let me grab this document. Ignore this title. Narrative structure of a 5-room dungeon. You've got your intro. We both agree on that. Introduce the dungeon to the players. What does that mean? Here's some box text. Read it. This is a dungeon. There's pillars standing before you. There's a big slab of rock. That is the door that you pry open. Describe the senses that you see, that you smell, that you taste, that you whatever. And then yeah, you go on from there. Apparently you also put a fight here. That never made sense to me. That does not make sense to me, because this is the beginning. Tension should be low. should be low. Introduction to the dungeon. Room 2. Conflict. Tension's going up now. You have your fight here. You have your puzzle. You have your roleplay challenge. You put a challenge here. Put a challenge here. Combat. Whatever. It's fine. Room 3 is your setback. You make the tension go down here. Put an obstacle here. A chasm. What I mean by tension going down, tension going up means there's a danger. There's something that the players need to respond to like put pressure on them. Tension going down means there may still be a danger, there still may be a challenge, but it's not putting pressure on the players. There's a chasm. The chasm is not attacking the players. It's not aggressively like reaching out to do like it's the players' time. Players can do whatever they want. And it's their time to breathe if they need to. It's their time to think. The tension goes down so that we can rocket it back up for room 4. Put a boss here. You want the tension to max out. You want to pull them up so that the players are like, no, it's serious time. It's serious time. Roll initiative, or if you want to do like a boss trap, sure. A boss puzzle, I don't know. Put a boss here. It needs to be a boss. It doesn't need to be a fight, but it probably should be a fight. Put it here. Players go through it. Hopefully it's fun. Hopefully it's well designed. We'll discuss that. And then assuming the players survive, resolution. Tension goes back to bottom. This is where you get the reward. You get you're done. Basically, you're signaling to the players, you're done. Good job. This room is your way of getting the players off of the high tension situation, high tension mindset. And you can put treasure here, rewards. You can put plot hooks. You can put stuff here. Stuff here to either say, great job, feel good players because you did a great job, or to put hooks here for the next game because you want them to play the next game, even though it's a one-shot. That is a narrative structure that I ascribe to. That is the two-humped narrative structure. If I could draw in Word, I would. I don't have drawing tools set up on this computer yet. I don't have a lot of things set up on this computer yet. You would have one hump, a small hump, and then you would have a big hump. Why am I doing this not in front of the camera? A small hump and then a big hump. And the apex of each hump is the climax. And yeah, that is a structure. That is a narrative structure. That is hopefully enjoyable to play. Hopefully enjoyable to create, to create ideas for. And the hope is that you don't have to tell a new player any of this when you tell them make a 5-room dungeon. This should just be automatic. And unfortunately it's not, so I may need to propose an alternative 5-room dungeon. But what I was going to say for this stream is not that this is wrong, that the existing narrative structure here is wrong. What I was going to say is that the narrative structure is fine, but there's more to a game than just narrative structure. So, in my experience, running 5-room dungeons and playing in 5-room dungeons, they're not necessarily the most satisfying dungeon. There's almost like something is missing from them every time I played. Like, Someone made a 5-room dungeon where it's like the resting place of a cool god, and you play through it and you're like, this is really cool, but it's done now, and I don't feel like I am satisfied by what I've just played. Maybe this concept needed 7 rooms or 8 rooms or 9 rooms. And many people will point out that a 5-room dungeon is not actually about 5 rooms. You can have 6 rooms in your 5-room dungeon. You can have 9 rooms in your 5-room dungeon. What's actually key about this dungeon are the scenes. These are not a listing of rooms. These are a listing of scenes that you should be having. Scene 1 is the entrance and guardian. Scene 2 is the puzzle or rope link challenge. Scene 3 is the trick or setback. Scene 4 is the climax, big battle or conflict. And scene 5 is the reward, revelation, or plot twist. But if you do that, then you lose the ability to give this to new players and say, hey, make a 5-room dungeon. You can't tell new players, hey, make a 5-scene dungeon. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Teaching that stuff is hard. So you can do that. And a scene doesn't have to be segmented by a room per room basis. So you can have 5 scenes across 5 rooms. You can have 5 scenes across 20 rooms. You can have 5 scenes all in the same room. You can make a 5-room dungeon with only 1 room. You can absolutely do that. Is it better? I feel like what often happens is a 5-room dungeon is made to have 5 rooms because of this name, and not because that is the optimal number of rooms for a dungeon to have. I'll also say, like, I don't think there are some stories, there are some plots that you can't express in a 5-room dungeon. I haven't thought about that on a deep enough topic to really go into it. I think that there are some 5-room dungeons that are better than others, though. And that is a function of, like, if you want to make a tomb, you can make that a 5-room dungeon. If you want to make, like, a sewer, maybe that's not a 5-room dungeon. Like, there are some stories you just can't tell with a 5-room dungeon. I'm talking about narrative-wise. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. But the other thing is that if you look at this as a prescriptive of how many scenes to have in a dungeon versus how many rooms to have in a dungeon, well, you no longer have guidance for how many rooms to have in your dungeon. If you're like, so this is a 5-room dungeon, but really you can have any number of rooms as long as you have 5 scenes. Well, how many rooms should I have then? Like, I want to tell a story about this tomb of the gods, and there's like a really cool, like, staff, and there's like a cursed elder who's forced to watch it. Like, how many rooms do I need to tell that story? And 5 is the only number I get, and I don't know. Maybe 5 is not the right number. That's not what I want to talk about, though. What I want to talk about is how do we make the 5 rooms interesting from a gameplay perspective? Let's assume that we are locked into 5 rooms. No matter what, we have to do 5 rooms. And let's assume we are bought in 100% to this narrative structure that the 5 rooms are giving us. So we're not talking about, like, well, this should have 6. This should be the 6-scene dungeon, or this should have 3 scenes, or like, there should be 3. We're not talking about any of that. We are locked into having 5 rooms. We're locked into having 5 scenes. We're not worrying about the narrative stuff. I want to make these the most fun rooms possible. How do I do that? This is not where I get this information from. So, like, how do I make a combat exciting? How do I make the puzzle exciting? How do I make all of that exciting? That's not something that we'll get from this webpage. We can go to previous advice. We can go to the Dungeon Master's Guide. We can go to other books, other campaigns, and see what they do to make a a fight fun, we can look that stuff up on a per room basis. But the thing is, if we're just this is my ultimate problem with the 5-room dungeon. What often happens is you make one room, you put something interesting in that room, and then you go to the other rooms, and what you did in the first room does not in any way, shape, or form carry over to future rooms. But I mean, like, what I mean by that is you have a fight in the first room. How that fight goes doesn't affect what happens in the second room, doesn't affect what happens in the third room. Like, you have a fight in the first room, you go to the second room, that is locked in. If you have a really, really great situation in the first room, if you have a fight go too well in the first room, you don't get to skip the rest of the dungeon. You still have to go to room 2, you still have to go to room 3, you still have to go to room 4. You can't like do something in room 3 to bypass the boss in room 4. It produces relatively contained challenges that don't really feed into each other. And I will point out that one of the suggestions was put warning signs in your rooms to affect the future fight. Sure. That's kind of what I want to see more of, but that's not really this is an idea, but that's not really represented by any of the advice given here. And there's nothing here that says you can't do that, but I have to figure this out on my own to figure out how do I make a 5-room dungeon actually click together. And that's what I would like to talk about. 30 minutes in, and that's the point that I had originally planned to talk about. What if we were dungeon designers? What if this was a video game? And we don't care about plot at all. We care about plot, but we're not. That's somebody else's problem. Somebody else is going to put plot on this thing. We are just concerned solely with making the mechanics work, making the exploration fun, making putting challenges down that the players can enjoy and interact with and have fun. We don't care about the narrative structure. We care about the narrative structure. We're not concerned with the narrative structure at this time. We're not concerned with the plot hook. We're not concerned with following any formulas. We just want to make this 5-room dungeon very memorable. And if we were doing it in a video game, what would we be doing? So let's assume we're video game mappers. Let's assume we're making a game. Not D&D. Let's just assume we're making a game. We're not making a 5-room dungeon. What if we were making a 5-level game? This could be any game. This could be like a side scroller. This could be a shooter. This could be a strategy game. It could be a puzzle game. We have to make a game. We have to stretch it out over 5 levels, which is honestly not that many levels. I feel like 8 is the minimum for a proper game, and 8 is the minimum. Ideally, you have a lot more levels than that. But let's assume we have 5. We only have 5. How do you structure your game? What do you put in level 1? What do you put in level 5? And I'm just going to start spitballing here. I'm going to say what you don't do. What you don't do is you don't put the end in level 1. You don't put the tutorial in level 5. You don't put answers in the last levels to questions that you asked in the first levels, because that doesn't make any sense. So what you do at a minimum, level 1 is the level where you teach. Level 1 is the level where you have the introduction to your game. Level 1, you may have an easy challenge, because The idea is that you don't expect the players to get stuck on level 1. You want them to get stuck on level 5, maybe level 3. You don't want to get them stuck on level 1 because what will happen is a lot of the players will hit level 1, get stuck, and quit. And then they don't get to experience the rest of the game. And you probably can't hook them without giving them at least an introduction. So give them an easy challenge, and then you escalate from there. You escalate from there. You start off with the tutorial. Now, some of you might say, well, wait a minute. I'm a game designer. I want to make a game where the players do die on level 1, where they do get stuck on level 1. And that's my game. And if players don't like it, well, screw them. There are definitely games like that. And that's totally fine to make a game like that if that's what you want. But let's all agree at least that level 5 should be harder than level 1. What you should not do, we can all agree at least. If level 1, you put if you're Dark Souls and you put like a really mean boss in level 1, you don't want the level 5 boss to be like, dies in one hit. Like, that will be a joke boss if you do that. That will be very confusing to your players. So when we say easy challenge here, that doesn't necessarily mean a challenge that doesn't pose any risk, but it does mean that this should be the easiest challenge of the 5 levels. Okay, that's level 1. I think we can also just say level 5. The boss fight, the big fight, the greatest challenge. That's what's level 5. What's on level 2? We've taught the mechanics. We've if this is like a side scroller, the player knows how to jump. They know that if there's enemies, you can jump on them to hurt them, or you can shoot them, or whatever. Level 2 is less teaching, more action, more conflict. You might introduce the idea of like locked doors or puzzles or obstacles. Introduce obstacles. Introduce something to challenge the player in a way that is it's just a challenge. Here's a ledge. You have to master wall jumping to get up it, and maybe you can't do wall jumping until you pick up the wall jumping boots. So you have to go get those. We'll put cool stuff here to enable progression. Maybe. All right. More challenging than level 1, but not too challenging. That's the idea, because you don't want people to get stuck in level 2. You want people to be able to beat level 2. Probably. What's level 3? What sets level 3 apart from level 2? We've got the player. They've been playing long enough that if they don't understand the game, how did they get here? So we can assume that we don't need to teach anymore. Probably. At least the basics. If we're introducing new stuff, obviously we still need to teach it. Proper challenge. This is the moment where we put down proper challenges. Level 2 is a challenge. Level 3 is a proper challenge. We might also introduce some new component, like here's the grappling hook, or here's the rocket launcher, or something to give the player more give the player more options, more ways to get engaged with the game. Like movement is good in a video game. here are challenges that you were probably having in level 2. They're very annoying. In level 3, we're going to give you a thing to make that not a challenge anymore. Like, we're going to give you rapid fire on your guns. So you don't need to spam the fire button. Or we're going to give you a double jump. So precision jumping is a lot less of a problem. Tools to make annoyances like a double jump. Level 4. Well, that's just you, the level designer. That's your opportunity to make a proper challenge. It's not a boss. It's not a boss room. Not a boss fight. In fact, the boss fight might not have a challenge at all other than the boss. It might just be like, welcome to level 5. Here's a big statue that's trying to step on you. Good luck. Have fun. Once you beat that statue, you did it. You beat the game. Congratulations. Here's the credits. Level 4 could be your last opportunity to make a challenge, like a proper level. So, like, go nuts. Have fun. Probably aren't introducing new game mechanics at this point. And then level 5, the boss fight, the greatest fight, the best challenge. That's the boss. Like, that's what do you want? Now this mapping looks very different from the narrative structure of a 5-room dungeon. Room 1 here. The entrance, the introduction, actually that's pretty similar. Room 2, conflict. The tension's going up. There is conflict here, but presumably there was conflict in level 1 as well. There's more conflict. Room 3, the setback. We don't have a setback. We're introducing more tools. We're building proper challenges. We're escalating things. The tension is going up in level 3, not down. The tension should be increased. So room 4 is the boss fight, and we have that as level 5. Level 4 is where the proper challenge is, and then level 5 is where the boss fight is, and we miss out on the resolution. Now, I'm not trying to say that this is wrong. But if we are trying to make a 5-room dungeon the most interesting dungeon that we can possibly make it, we need all of the rooms to be contributing to that. That means level 1 is not just an entrance, although I should say level 1 is not just an entrance because there's also a guardian. Level 1 is our opportunity to come up with something interesting, cool, set the tone, set the ingredients for our dungeon, put them in level 1 for the players to pick up on and learn. So like in level 1, in room 1, we may have a situation where there's a door and there's 3 buttons next to that door. And in order to pass, you have to press the 3 buttons in the right order. And doing that is a challenge. It might take time. It might be you have to find the code. You probably don't need to find a code if it's just 3 buttons. But if we do that in level 1, and then in level 2, we put 3 buttons, but we don't put a door next to it. The players intuitively know, like, okay, I need to press these 3 buttons in the right order, and then something will happen. It may not be a door opens because they don't see a door. There's no door here. But you've taught the player 3 buttons does a thing. Okay, we can apply that logic directly to our D&D 5-room dungeon. Room 1 is where we introduce the ingredients we need to make our dungeon cool, our mechanics cool. What that looks like, I don't know. Off the top of my head, maybe I should have planned that. Let's go with the 3 button idea. let's say we have a mechanic where there are 3 buttons on the wall, and pressing the 3 buttons in the right order achieves progress. Okay. Room 1, it's obvious that that's where we put the 3 buttons in an obvious place. We try and focus our players' attention to the buttons, so we put it in an obvious place. And then we put the consequences of success and failure right there, so they cannot be missed. So we put a door right next to it. You press the 3 buttons, the door opens. Cool, great. Room 2, we have our 3 buttons, but we don't have to put the consequences in an obvious place because the players have already been primed. So consequences obvious. Progression is obvious as well. Progression being the door opens, you can go into the next room. That's progression. Room 2, buttons are in an obvious place because we want to reinforce the buttons, but the consequences may not be obvious. If you press the buttons in the right order, a rope dangles down from the ceiling with a key on it. And, you have the key now, but where does it go? You still need to figure that out. Progression should still be obvious, because you still want to be able to get to room 3. Room 3 is your opportunity to hide the buttons. Players may expect that there's buttons and they don't find them, and they may go, wait a minute, what's going on here? This is different. So they may have to hunt them down. If you put the buttons behind pillars, if you split them up, the players may still be able to, like, if there's 3 pillars and you have to go behind the pillars to see there's one button on each of them, the players may still be able to figure out, okay, I need to press these buttons in the correct order, even though they've been spread out more. And they do that. Non-obvious solution happens. Non-obvious consequence happens. They use that to solve and progress. Buttons may not be in an obvious place. Consequences may not be obvious. Progression is still obvious. Room 4, that's where the gloves come off for the designer. Those buttons can be anywhere. Those buttons can do anything. And once you've solved the puzzle, you still have to figure out how to get to the next room. That doesn't have to be obvious. So, like, this is your opportunity as a designer to put the buttons somewhere not obvious, so you have to hunt them down. Put the consequences not obvious, so the players, they know if I press these buttons in the right order, something will happen. They need to figure out what it is. And then, once they figured out what it is, there may not be a door in this room. They have to find the door. It might be hidden. It might be somewhere not obvious, like there's a pool of water and the door is actually at the bottom of the pool of water, and somehow it's not, like, you have to find it. It could be in the ceiling. It could be an illusion. It could, like, you don't have to show them the way to room 5. You can let them hunt for that. Not be obvious. And then room 5 is the boss fight. You may not even have buttons at this point. There's a big minotaur and he's trying to punch you. Okay. Like, we don't need to think too hard about the boss fight. That's not true. We do need to think hard about the boss fight. But we don't need to worry about how we got here. Maybe you have buttons and the minotaur is pressing the buttons. So you've got to deal with that. Like, I don't know. That's the bare bones of making a dungeon with a mechanic that actually connects together. 3 buttons. I don't know why that's not a very interesting mechanic. What makes the way I've written it's not very interesting. What might make it more interesting is if there's like, okay, there's buttons here. Also, there's a guardian that is punching you in the face, and it will never stop punching you. So you need to press the buttons to get out of this room. Like you can damage it to slow it down. You can damage it to pause it, but you cannot stop it. So you need to like figure it out. Go. You may have a situation where like the buttons are broken and they need to be repaired, and okay, that's a challenge for the players to figure out how they're going to repair these buttons. Maybe there's a like every time you press the wrong button you get electric zap, or every time you press the wrong button a snake falls into the room and now you have to fight a snake. Like, cool. You need to composite other mechanics on top of this mechanic to make it interesting. So consequences. Okay, so time pressure to press the buttons. Conflict while pressing the buttons. I'm getting silly. Is there a way to adapt the 5-room dungeon concept to a non-linear dungeon? I don't think so. I honestly don't think, because there's just not enough rooms. And if we accept the premise that like a 5-room dungeon doesn't actually need to be 5 rooms, 5-room dungeon can be 20 rooms, because we're actually we care about the scenes. We are all about the we just want these 5 scenes. Where is it? What is it? Wow. Okay. I'm so prepared. We just want these 5 scenes over here. Oh, I can't. We just want these 5 scenes over here. You go into room 1. Okay, and now you're at a non-linear crossroads. Where do you go? If you go anywhere other than room 2, this whole system breaks down. You've completely lost the advantage of the narrative structure here. And then if there's no narrative structure, why are you making a 5-room dungeon? Like, that's the whole point. That's the whole idea behind this. So I don't think there's a way to make this function as a non-linear thing. You could do a thing where you have a 5-room dungeon. There's 20 rooms. There's plenty of branching paths and all that. You can go in any direction you want. Room 1 is room 1. Room 2, from room 1, there are 4 ways to go, and all 4 of them are a different room 2. And then in each room 2, there's like 4 room 3s, and then each room 3, there's like whatever. You can glue a bunch of different 5-room dungeons into one dungeon. I don't think you can connect them though, because if you do, then like it stops making none of this makes sense. I do see that as a core downside of this. I don't think there's any way to make this non-linear, and the best dungeons are non-linear. Linear dungeons, they're fine. I'm not saying don't run linear dungeons, but my favorite dungeons, they're all non-linear dungeons. Maybe that's part of the reason why I'm not like super in love with 5-room dungeons. Yeah. It's an unfortunate. But if we are forced to run a 5-room dungeon, if we're forced to put mechanics in here, we've got our baseline mechanic, which is pressing buttons. We're adding time. We can add time pressure to the buttons. We can add conflict. We can add consequences to pressing the wrong buttons. We can put the buttons in a weird place. Make it spatially difficult to press the buttons. We can make a room where it's just a chasm and there's a rickety rope bridge across, and the buttons are only accessible if you're on the bridge, and if you press a button, there's like a 20% chance you fall, and like, oh geez, this is complicated. Like, okay. We can make it we can make it. We can go too far with this concept. We can add conditions. There's a force field in front of the buttons. You can't press them until you break this crystal. But if you break this crystal, it will also lower the force field that is keeping the death tigers out, or the deadly gas, or I don't know, whatever. And then if we have death tigers and we have deadly gas, maybe introduce that in room 1 so that we can have a we can introduce that to the players. There's just so many things. You don't make a mechanic and then go, cool, I'm done, because that'll make a boring dungeon. What makes a dungeon interesting is the interactions of various mechanics all together. If you're just fighting one thing, that's whatever. If you're fighting a thing while it's on a rickety bridge, okay, that's a little more interesting. If you fight a thing on a rickety bridge and it's hailing indoors somehow through magic, or I don't know, okay, that might be a little more interesting. If you do all that and then like, I don't know, I'm thinking of this stuff on the top of my head. If you add all that, and also there's a magic rune in this room that will explode if no one is singing. So someone has to be singing this entire combat, or else. I don't know. That's probably too far. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking. But add the more elements that are interacting together, the more dynamic, the more complex, hopefully the more deep the actual gameplay ends up being. So, all in all, that's how I think one might be able to improve their 5-room dungeon game. If you were forced to make a 5-room dungeon, and by 5-room I mean like it doesn't have to literally be 5 rooms, but 5 stages. Let's say that. Think of interesting mechanics. Think of how you introduce those mechanics through a 5-stage process, like so. Don't skimp on the story. Story is also important. You've got this narrative structure right here. Oh my gosh, I just realized I should have done that before starting the stream. Don't skip on the narrative structure. But a good narrative structure and good mechanics are parallel. They're important to go together, but having good narrative structure does not mean you have good mechanics, and having good mechanics does not mean you have good narrative structure. You need both. And even in games where your players are just big story nerds and they don't care about mechanics, we're not even rolling dice, we're just going off vibes. Good mechanics are not a bad thing to have. And likewise, for players that are just like, I just want to roll dice and don't read to me. I don't want any story at all. If I would like to skip all the story, it's still good to have the story. It's not bad to have the story. It's better to have good mechanics and good story than to not have them. Yeah. That is my piece. Making a good dungeon from the perspective of video game mapping, because video games have a completely different pacing than stories, than movies, than music, than tabletop RPGs. So what is a good video game map may not necessarily be a good D&D map, but the lessons, I think, are still important to take. You want to introduce game, does the 5-room dungeon need to be linear then? I believe so. I believe it does. I don't think there's any way to do the 5-room dungeon in a non-linear way. So I was saying earlier that what you absolutely do not want to do, you don't want to have the boss fight in room 1. Like, you want level 1 to be the easiest challenge of the 5 levels. You may not. I am the kind of designer that likes level 1 to be, I know the players are going to beat this level. The challenge is not beating level 1. If the players get stuck on level 1, I have messed up. That's not a universal. There are definitely some games that they want to be Dark Souls. They want level 1 to be, you will die on level 1 if you are not on playing your A game, you know? That's fine. But you absolutely do not want to have a situation where level 1 is deadly and level 5 is a joke. You don't want the boss fight to be like you punch the boss one time and they explode. Your players will be like, "What? Huh?" They might doubt you. That's how bad it is. You generally want that to escalate. And if you do this non-linearly, there's no way to ensure that. Like, if you go from level 1 straight to level 5, then what are you doing? Like, you go level 1, level 5, level 3, level 2, level 4. Like, it doesn't. There's some teaching that you missed. There's some. None of the conflict is going to feel as impactful as it did in level 5, and all of that is going to apply the same to the 5-room dungeon. If you go from room 1 to room 5, like, okay, cool, we went in the entrance and we got the reward. Okay, can we just leave now? Like, no, you can't leave now. You've got the rest of the dungeon to explore. You might set something up where, like, okay, if you go to room 1, if you start in room 1 and you go to room 5, room 1 gets locked and you can't leave until you visit all the other rooms. You go to the big battle next, and then you do, like, this doesn't necessarily make sense if you don't do it in a linear fashion. And if you build a dungeon, you are kind of spatially mapping out where these scenes are happening, and so by extension, the dungeon itself ends up being linear. There's no, I don't see any way to get around that. I don't see any way to be like, we put room 1 here, we put room 5 here, put room 4 here, and room 3 and room 2. And we let the players decide what order they experience these rooms. Like, it doesn't make sense. I mean, you could do that, but then there's no advantage to doing this, because the whole point of this is, by making a 5-room dungeon, you get the narrative pacing of a good story for free. The story structure. You don't have to worry about doing that yourself. And yeah, like, I can't imagine getting the reward before you do the big fight. Like, that doesn't. I don't know. You could argue doing the setback before the challenge, maybe, but then that puts you in a situation where you're doing the puzzle or role playing challenge and you're going straight into a fight. You know, you could do it. Is it better? I don't think that's ideal. Could create an option for the players to go in a room, but whatever room they chose became room 1. Give the players a feeling of agency. You could do that. So if you do that, then yeah, you can make you can make the layout nonlinear, but you can't make the rooms nonlinear. The rooms would still be linear. It's just that where the rooms are, you wouldn't decide until the players actually go. Maybe for replayability, you could have one thing in room 1 that players will only know about if they've learned all the other rooms before. That's possible. That is possible. You could set something up where, like, it sounds very complicated to set up where like there are 5 rooms and each room has hidden components to it, and you don't reveal what's in that room until the players have visited other rooms, or you don't reveal everything in that room until the players have visited all the other rooms, and then you organically end up with a situation where like no matter what room they pick, the first room is the entrance and it has a guardian, and no matter what room they pick for the second room, there's a puzzle or role-playing challenge, and then you go through that, and that could work. That sounds like a lot of work, but I suppose you could do that. That feels kind of like mashing five-room dungeons together, which is amazing for replayability, for the record. Like, depending on the order of the rooms you go in, you get a completely different dungeon. I'm not opposed to that. I need to think about that one. Yeah, that is an option. Yeah. I don't know any, like, I know there are a lot of published third-party content out there where like someone professional has made a dungeon and it's a 5-room dungeon. They don't say that up front, but it's a 5-room dungeon. I don't know of any 5-room dungeons that I would recommend. I don't know of any like you have to play this dungeons. If you know of any, let me know. I'd love to take a look at them. All of the 5-room dungeons that I've played in have been made by the DM that I played with, and like it's fine. I'm not saying that they were bad games or don't do 5-room dungeon. It's just the dungeons never felt complete. They always felt like there's something cool going on here and we're done. Okay, throw it all away now. we're done. No more game. It never felt like there was enough runway for the story to actually land, or for the dungeon to make sense. Here's a tomb. It has 5 rooms. Should there be more rooms? Yeah, there should be. Anyway, that is my experience, and I wonder if it's your experience as well. And if it is, let's try and do better. Let's try and add more, focus more on mechanics. Think like a video game designer. Don't make a video game map, because that's for video games, not for TPT RPGs. But consider how you might make a video game. Consider the pacing that you introduce your mechanics to the players, how you teach them, how you build up the challenges. Let's try applying that to a 5-room dungeon. See if it makes it better. I bet it will. Well, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. I'd be happy to answer. I have spoken my mind on this, and I don't know if I've done a good job, but I can't think of anything else to say. So this is where I will say, yep, and then stop here. So yeah, if you thanks for watching, folks. Hope this was helpful. Hope this was informative. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat or in the comments. I will hopefully be doing more of these. I need to think of more topics. If you've got an idea for a topic that might be fun to talk about, let me know. I have more stream side stuff to figure out. I've got to figure out how to make thumbnails again. I've got to figure out how to make drawing on this computer a thing. And yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for stopping by, y'all. Hope this was fun. Hope you're having a good day out there. Have some fun games, y'all. See you all next time. I'm going to head out. I'm going to go get some food. Bye, y'all.